we'll get started now, and then you'll learn who we are. I'm Eric Lassahn. I use he, him pronouns. I work in alumni and community engagement, and so one of the jobs in my role is to work with affinity groups. And so the Sustainability Network started as an alumni affinity group, and what we've realized is that it's one of the affinity groups for alums that I think also is super relevant to students. And so one of the reasons for this program and some of the other programs we've done in the past is to connect current students who are thinking about what is a career in sustainability and what is a pathway towards some of those different careers. And so this is actually the first time, I think, in the history of the affinity group that we've had an in-person program. We do these quite often virtually, and I'm really excited to actually all be together in the same room. Anyway, thanks you all for coming. I'm really excited to have you here. And I'll go ahead and do the land acknowledgement, and then we'll keep going. So we're gathered on the land of the Calpullia, who today are represented by the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde and the Confederated Tribes of Siletz Indians, whose relationship with this land continues to this day. We offer gratitude for the land itself, for those who have stewarded it for generations, and for the opportunity to study, learn, work, and be in community on this land. We acknowledge that our university's history, like many others, is fundamentally tied to the first colonial developments in the Willamette Valley. Finally, we respectfully acknowledge and honor past, present, and future Indigenous students of Alena. So here's our panel this evening. These wonderful folks in front of you. Some are more recent alums, and some have been away from Alena for going on a decade, and a little longer than a decade. And that's about when I got to Alena. So it's an interesting intersection there. Rather than have the panelists introduce themselves and then introduce themselves again, we'll have a person-by-person reveal as their slide comes up. And so, actually, not exactly a panelist this evening, but first slide, first person to speak this evening is our guest, Jeff, from Element.
So, not to detract too much from our panelists, but I'm Jeff. I know quite a few of you, but I am the Creative Advisor for Public Service, Government, and Sciences. It's a really long title. Really anything science-related government, that all falls under me. So I just wanted to plug myself real quick. If you're at all interested in a career in sustainability, I'm the person that you could talk to about like building your resume, finding job opportunities, filling out those grad school applications. If you want to have a conversation of like, I don't actually know what I want to do, but I know I want it to have something to do with being outdoors or whatever, I can help you with that. So I also have a bachelor's in earth science, which is pretty closely related. So, and then I put my name on there.
And thanks, Jeff, for your partnership in helping put this evening together and help spread the word and get as many students as we have tonight in the room. So it's really fun to have recent alums and students all together. Without further ado, let's start with Victoria.
I have a suspicion that I was first. So hello everyone, my name is Victoria Benning, I use she, her pronouns. I am a graduate of the class of 2014 with an environmental science degree and a minor in history. So I also hung out with Cecily McCaffrey a lot, she's wonderful. I am currently one of the operations and policy coordinators for the Oregon Department of Agriculture. I'm the Water Quality Initiatives Coordinator. And I got to this by rather a circuitous path, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you all have about that. I'm here as an alumna, so no ag questions, I guess. But I started my Willamette journey with a colloquium class called America's Dysfunctional Food System. And before that, I was definitely someone who ate Kraft macaroni and cheese and cake from a box and did not understand that food came from anywhere else. And through that class, taught by Seth Kotler, another great history professor, I learned that there was so much more to sustainability and food systems than I even ever imagined. And I had been in sustainability in my high school, but it was really hard for me to understand there's carbon emissions, there's climate change, and all of that is really big and broad. I don't understand how that's tangible and how that relates to me and what I can do about it. But when I started thinking about food and the nutrients that we put in our bodies, hopefully every day, that was something I could grab onto and that was tangible. And so I got really into sustainable agriculture and really into food systems and how do we think about those processes of tending the land and tending our bodies and tending our communities and how are all of those interrelated. But I didn't know what that meant in terms of a career path when I left Willamette with a degree in environmental science. And so step one, I got a job at LifeSource. Step two, I knew that I wanted to explore the food system more. So I signed up for an AmeriCorps program with, I taught little kids about gardens and how to grow gardens through the Marion Hope Food Share. Learned a whole heck of a lot. It was a great learning experience. It was 11 months contained and then I could do the next thing. And after that I thought, well, that was great. I should learn some more. And so I did the second AmeriCorps year out on the coast working with fishermen and learned that I knew nothing about fisheries, but I learned a whole lot during that year. And since then, I've sort of been following a path. So every door that opens, I sort of say, what do I want to learn next about the food system? What do I have yet to understand, whether it be processing or farming or what have you? And I just keep kind of jumping through what's available. And a year ago, I started in water quality with the Department of Ag, and it's been an exciting ride. I wish I had paid better attention during water resources in undergrad, but I'm learning it all again now. So that's me. I think I'll just pass it to you, Kendra. You're up.
Am I next?
Yep.
Oh, great. Wait, so do you want us to give the whole spiel right now?
Yeah.
Great. Yes.
Yeah, so it's a year-long, in most cases it's a year-long service commitment, so it's basically being a professional volunteer. So you sign up, most programs are 11 months, and they usually go September through July. But you get a living stipend, you qualify for the maximum amount of SNAP benefits, so you have the basis by which to serve and to actually give back to your communities. Your basic needs will be met. You're not going to be making money, like to save for the future, but you will have your basic needs met. And at the end of that service term, one, you gain a ton of experience. You've been given a lot of responsibility. You often get to develop programs, try things on, see if you like something, see if you don't like something, build your network, and it's only 11 months, so at the end of it you can say, I really like this, I want to invest, or no thank you, I would like not to work with children anymore. And you get an education award at the end of it. That can be used on past debt or future schooling, and a handful of other benefits depending on which program you do.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's great. I recommend.
And just to add on to that, there are a couple that are shorter as well. I did one through the Northwest Youth Corps, and it was only 3 or 4 months. So if you want a shorter commitment, like there's definitely some opportunities for that as well. That's essentially what mine was. Mine was a summer one. I did do it after I graduated, but from what I can recall, it fit within like the summer time frame. So I think it's possible.
Good question.
There's a lot of variance in AmeriCorps programs wherever you're looking, so just spend time Googling, asking questions is always really helpful. And contact your alumni with experience, you might be able to help you.
And if you are Googling, it's worth noting that it's AmeriCorps. So core like Army Corps, not core like Corps of Apple.
And then,
Yeah. More will be revealed. Back to Kendra.
Yes, we'll have time at the end for question and answer, so if other cool, interesting questions arise, make a note, or I imagine the panelists will mind if you ask them as we go along.
So my name is Kendra Schaffer. I'm a graduate from the class of 2013. I was an anthropology major with a minor in Spanish, which, yeah, a part of, I'm sure everyone's like, wait, social sciences, how does that relate to sustainability? I really thought that I wanted to go to wilderness therapy, so like tinkered around with like camp counselor jobs and worked in residential therapy and tried to go get my MSW, and after trying grad school for a couple of weeks, they removed the focus program that I wanted, so we worked in social services for a while. And then, I guess very long story short, ended up in another program that was around sustainable tourism because I was really interested in trying to figure out how to create economic systems for small places, because I had been living in Klamath Falls for a while, which is a rural town in south central Oregon, about 40,000 people. And seeing big businesses come in but then take that money out. And so I was really interested in like, all right, how do we bring in money and finances and economic opportunities for people in spaces that don't have a lot of opportunity, but then keep that money and those jobs in the area versus like some hours. So I spent about a year and a half in school learning the backgrounds around sustainable tourism, went to Costa Rica for a little bit. And then as life happens, sometimes it kind of throws you a curveball and you end up at square one again. And so as I was trying to figure it out, the people that I met at my time in Willamette are very good connectors and resources. And as one thing I will plug is if you have friends here, keep them, because they will be the people to potentially be like, hey, I know you and this job is available, you should apply. So that's what happened. I now currently work for a nonprofit called Rural Development Initiatives. And so we're based out of the Eugene area, but we work in rural communities around Oregon, Washington, and Idaho, doing a lot of economic development, leadership programming, civic engagement, and like a lot of Spanish language, small business entrepreneurship. And my current title is Policy and Networks Manager. So I do a lot of their civic engagement and rural leadership and advocacy and policy work. I just finished a 2-day programming with 27 ladies from 17 different counties in Oregon, bringing them to Salem to teach them how to advocate for the bills and legislative that they want to do, and what it means to navigate the Capitol and talk to the people that are making change in the state, and how to then like support each other and work with each other. So through a different, more social lens and cultural lens of sustainability, it's around like how do we use our social capital to then invest in those spaces that we want to continue to thrive. That's a very short snapshot of what I've been doing recently, but yeah, I'm sure we can answer my questions later.
Hello, I'm Marshall Curry, he, him pronouns. I'm also class of 13. I had a major in sociology, minor in chemistry and Spanish, but also just kind of was a jack of all trades. Spent time in music, played sports, did Greek life. I don't know if they still have these, but I helped coach other student organizations, which meant I just hung out with all the student organizations as a student at Willamette, and so just kind of dabbled in everything while I was here. And I graduated wanting to go into a teaching program. I really liked how a certain type of sociology called critical pedagogy helped do research on schooling and how people work, and I really wanted to be a teacher and kind of apply that, and they decided to close the Masters of Teaching program here at Willamette, and so I decided not to do that, and found a job working at Marion Food Share in town because I had been doing some research as an undergraduate through the LARC grant, which I also don't think is happening anymore. But undergraduate research is still happening, right? So I think you should explore that as an opportunity. And I found out that I really liked sustainability. There was one organization doing a lot of really cool sustainability projects in town, and that was Marion Food Share. They're the regional food bank that Victoria mentioned as a part of her career journey, that they provide food to the food banks in town, and they also do a lot of other stuff, like manage all the community gardens and help do the Meals on Wheels program, and they do a lot of cool stuff. And so I was like, oh, that's a cool place. And then the CEO came through the coffee shop that I was working at with his logo on his shirt, and he said, he didn't say anything, he just ordered his coffee. I was working behind the counter, I said, oh, that's a cool logo on your shirt. Do you work there? He's like, yeah, I'm the CEO. I was like, oh, you are? Oh, crazy. I got really nervous, and then I said, I'm a big fan of your work. I think it's really cool, And he said, hey, just send me an email if you want to ever have a tour, just let me know. And so I emailed him and got to go on a tour. And when I went on the tour, they told me about this job they had that was basically like a dishwasher that they needed to also do an education program. So I was like, oh, I can do that. I've been studying education, I can't go into grad program for education, I want to do education really bad. I've been doing coffee shop jobs for a while, I know how to do dishes. I think this could work. So I applied and I got the job, it was really cool. And the food share was a really great place to play around with a lot of different things. They have a warehouse, they have a farm. It matched my interests really well. I stayed there for a while, did some cool work, and really got the bug for sustainability there, but also had some here in some classes that I took that I listed on the board. One was with Seth Crawford, who now runs one of the biggest cannabis seed selling plots. I think he's a professor at OSU. You can look up Professor Crawford. He's got some really cool sustainability work. Anyway, long story short is I did that. Then I went to graduate school because I wanted to do education policy work, and I knew I needed to get a master's degree, so I have a master's in public administration, and found out by talking to alumni as I started the program that they had basically a 2-for-1 deal. So I got a master's in educational leadership at the same time by taking elective credits very strategically. And then I got this cool job working with universities and local governments all over the country. I was a consultant in order to work there as a startup company. So there's pluses and minuses of being a consultant, starting your own business, so I can answer questions about that. But what's important for this conversation is I was helping universities understand the sustainability and development goals, which were adopted in 2016 or 15 by the United Nations, all 192 or 93 countries. I forget how many countries there are in the world. It's not great on me. But however many countries there are, they all agreed to the sustainability and development goals in 2016. That's why they're called the Paris Climate Agreement. You might have heard of that. If you haven't, look it up and read the Sustainability Development Goals, because I have good news for all of you who mentioned in your introductions you're not really sure if what you want to do is related to sustainability, or you're just interested in sustainability but you're not sure what you want to do. The Sustainability Goals basically define how sustainability is everything, and everything can be related to sustainability. One of the first goals is related to, or some of the goals are related to just keeping people alive. Minimizing death. Some of the goals are related to recognizing, acknowledging, and leveraging tribal relationships. And I want to call back to the acknowledgement in my statement, or during this introductory statement of mine, that you can't do sustainability without doing tribal awareness, tribal justice, environmental justice, social justice. Those are really important things to know about. And as you go forward in your studies, if you want to do this work, you need to know those things so that way you can be sustainable to the people that are in our world. So now I'm not a consultant. I'm working for a state agency, and I work on community engagement and work in higher education or post-secondary education. But I can't say more than that because it's inappropriate for me to do so. So I'm here on a personal level, is what I'm trying to say. Still new to being working for the state of Oregon. So yeah, bear with me on that one. 196. Thank you, Kendra. So I look forward to answering other questions as we go. But thanks for having me and being interested in sustainability.
All right. Who's next?
Yes, hello everyone, I'm Allegra Starr. I was class of Q2, and I majored in economics and the PPLE major and the public health field major, and then I minored in environmental science and sustainability. That wasn't my plan when I came in. I just like a lot of things, and it kind of happened. And I had also a similar thing now with the work that I'm doing. I'm a consultant now for a consulting firm called Resource Recycling Systems. And when I was first starting this job, I had a similar thing that Victoria was just saying about like tying it back to her colloquium, because my colloquium was all about like materials management, and it was like economic systems and like global trade, but also consumption and waste and all of these different things. And we read this book called The Story of Stuff. I don't know if any of you guys have heard of it, but it's a fantastic book. And I like mentioned that book when I was interviewing for my job, and everyone was like, "Oh my God, that's the book," you know. So I told my colloquium professor, of course, and my like pathway out of Willamette is very tied to Victoria here. I started working at the state legislature my junior year at Willamette. I was an aide for the chair of Ag and Natural Resources, and he also was on the Committee on Water, and so those were the two things that I was mainly supporting him on. I also ended up helping with behavioral health, and he got tasked with that, but that's a little bit of a more niche area of sustainability work for me. Anyway, it was an incredible experience. I love it. If you're interested in doing policy work, take advantage of the relationship you have across the street here. That was like absolutely hands down one of my favorite things about being here. And so I was doing that, and I had like started with like the PPLE's department program where you're supposed to like intern over there, and then I got hired on as staff. And so I was doing that, and I did that after I graduated too, but as I was wrapping up, Victoria had reached out to a professor that I was in a class of that had been her professor, and said like, "Hey, we're recruiting," and for the AmeriCorps program that she was working for at the time. And do you know anyone that would like to do this? And so then we got connected, and I talked to her, and as soon as I talked to her, I was like, okay, I have to do this now. And so I moved to rural Southern Oregon at Grants Pass, and I was working for the city, and I did their sustainability plan.
Casual. Chill. Just write an entire sustainability plan.
It was really awesome. It was just such an incredible experience to have, because that's just not something that you're typically going to get to do like right after like college, is like go in and be able to like take something on. Like I was heading a task force and wrote this like 200-page multifaceted document like that I would be getting copy for the person who was doing instead if I'd like gone a more traditional career path, I feel like. And it was just really cool. And that was another thing that came up like in my current job. I like mentioned that I did that, and they like didn't give like a limit to like the writing sample that we were allowed to submit, so I just submitted the plan. And they were like, "Was this correct?" And I was like, "Yeah, I meant to do that." And I think it stood out, and they were like, "This is really cool that you did this," and like that was mentioned after I was hired. Like that was definitely like it was that work experience that definitely was like leveraging me into my current position now. So, yeah.
Yay, sustainability now.
Yeah, and now my current position, it's not just recycling that we do, but it's like general sustainability consulting. So like one of the things I'm working on right now is a different sustainable materials management plan for Benton County, which is actually not for Benton County. It's for like all of the northwest corner of Oregon. It's like 13 different counties. And before that, I don't know if you guys have been tracking any of the like RMA Recycling Modernization Act stuff in Oregon, but that's a big deal right now. And that's what my past like 4 months has been. RMA. And yeah, so it's like a contract that we have with the people who DEQ contracted with. But it's very cool stuff. It's a lot of engagement with different local governments and stuff on that front. But like the cool thing about consulting is it's like such a mix of different things. So I actually really like it. And also as much as I love doing government work, it's also really nice to not work for the government anymore. For a variety of reasons, which I could get into if you guys have more questions on that. But yeah, that's that.
Thank you. Next we have Mitchell.
Hey, my name is Mitchell. I'm a very recent grad, as you can see from Willamette. I was just in your shoes about 7 or so months ago. I graduated with a Bachelor's of Arts in Mathematics and a Bachelor's of Science in Computer Science and Data Science. And every time I say that, somebody goes, how is that in any way related to sustainability? Which I always laugh and agree. But the big thing about my education here is I realized data science is everywhere, and if you've walked by the Ford building, they've probably tried like dragging you into it and telling you that data science is everywhere. But sustainability is also everywhere, and the two are very intertwined because numbers are everywhere, and we're all trying to make a cooperative effort to make sure that we're able to be on this planet for a long time, you know? So one thing I came to find during my career, or my term at Willamette, was that the skills that I'm picking up can be applied not just here, but kind of everywhere. I started with a colloquium, like all of us, you know, that shaped how I wanted to go in the future with David Craig. It was called Health and Longevity in Gen Z, super for training, you know, Gen Z. I learned a lot there about stuff like food systems, about how we take care of ourselves, about the different things that go into well-being and what is health in the first place. And so from there, I always thought I wanted to do something techy, right? But then I got a tech degree, I did some internships, and I realized that going to a private military corporation and living soullessly was not what I wanted to do with my life. So during that, I started looking at other opportunities, and the entire time I was at Willamette, I worked with the dining hall, over working as a wine server, as a back house prep cook, and then I connected with the Bon Appetit Sustainability Fellow, which is what I am now. So my whole position as a Sustainability Fellow is I go to all of our different Bon Appetit accounts on the West Coast, so Willamette, Reed College, George Fox, University of Portland are just some of the ones in Oregon, but we have tons in California, as well as Washington and the Rockies, and a bunch on the East Coast that I'm not even sure of. But my job is to go to these different places, talk a little bit about the commitments that we do on campus, as well as educate students about the food system in general, and some of the drawbacks from things like industrial farming or industrial animal raising, some of the stuff that comes from that, like greenhouse gas emissions or the effects on animal humane practices, things like farm worker rights. So my whole job has been one big learning for what is this big issue, how is it present in the food systems, and then what do we do to tackle it. So while I was at Willamette, this was something that always piqued my interest because I worked for the dining hall, and I was like, what's so special about the fact that this is sustainable seafood? What does that even mean? During that time, I realized that things like sustainable seafood or certified humane animal products or things like locally grown farms and locally sourced produce are all really important in ensuring that we have a sustainable food system, not just on campus, but across the entire country and in the entire world. So my job is a little bit of education. I'm happy to answer any questions about the dining hall because I know that decently well, but also food system sustainability, like a lot of my colleagues here can answer as well. And then the other highlights of my time at Willamette is I was an SCRP scholar. So I worked with Katata Smalley doing census data research. That allowed me to kind of refine some of those data science and techie skills, but it also just let me see what research is like in the first place. And that's really what dictated me away from something like a dimly lit corporate job into doing something that has real impact, because I saw what just one or a couple people can do when they have resources and they have a goal in mind to change something. So being able to research was a huge factor in where I wanted to end up. And I highly recommend, like others have said here, if you get the chance to research while you're at college, do so, because it will absolutely inform where you want to go with your degree. And then the other thing I'll kind of wrap up here and mention is that something I found is that no matter what degree you end up with, no matter what your bachelor's is in, Bachelor of Arts or Bachelor of Science, you can apply that in a lot of different ways, and it's something that I found in an area that seems completely unrelated to what I did. So DS, CS, math, like that doesn't seem anything to do with food. Just yesterday I got to host like a healthy kids cooking class for 20 little 7-year-olds and 8-year-olds, which is, I apologize if I have to speak kind of weird, my voice is basically gone. With that said, I learned that no matter what degree you go into, you can apply it and utilize those skills that you picked up in a lot of different ways. even though I'm working for a food dining corporation, I still use my data science on a daily basis. I still have to use my mathematics knowledge. So I would encourage you, whatever study you're in, to really learn it, like not just memorize the textbook and regurgitate for a test, but really internalize whatever you can get from that knowledge. That way you can then utilize it for whatever job and career path you go into. All right, thank you.
And our closer. Oh, whoa. What just happened? Maybe I just need to move it now.
I mean, I can also just talk about it, people can imagine what's up there. Alright, yeah, while I'm working on that, my name's Alena, I use she, her pronouns. I just graduated pretty recently as well, I'm class of 2023. I got an environmental science degree and I've got minors in sustainability and data science. And I kind of have a hodgepodge of stuff that I've done, but it mostly comes down to like working with youth and education, and then also like working in the outdoors and like conservation or restoration type work. So those are kind of my two areas. While I was at Willamette, I did take a class called Working with the Land, which I think was really valuable. I got to actually do hands-on like farming work and gardening work, and learn about community gardens. And also that class had a lot of quotes from like Robin Wall Kimmerer's book, Braiding Sweetgrass, which has come up in my jobs as well that I've done since then. And then one of the first jobs that I did was the stream crew with the city of Salem, and I learned about that through Willamette and through professors who were promoting that internship during my classes. Highly recommend if that is something that anyone is interested in doing. That kind of got my foot in the door with like doing the manual labor portion and like being in streams and working as a crew. And then that allowed me to be a good candidate when I graduated for a job with Northwest Youth Corps, which is also associated with AmeriCorps, so it's kind of like a dual position. And that allowed me to keep gaining experience with restoration work. So I did a lot of invasive species removal and identification, and then a little bit of like native plant. We didn't do planting with Youth Corps, but we did some like maintenance work and like watering trees that were planted by Friends of Trees and things like that. So that was really cool, and also gave me the chance to keep working with youth and that educational side of things. And then that kind of led me into substitute teaching. So that's what I did last winter, was I was a substitute here in the Salem-Keizer School District. And that helped me gain a lot of skills. I will say patience. Encourage you. So gained a lot of patience, and learned a lot about working with kids. And then that allowed me to be a good candidate for the latest job that I just finished up. It's a seasonal position with OMSI. They have outdoor school educators, or outdoor science instructors is I think the official title. They've got folks down in Newport, they've got a camp there, and then they have folks over in sort of Central Oregon. It's Hancock Field Station by like the John Day fossil beds. So I worked down in Newport at the coast, and that was a really cool job. Getting to work with kids and be outside was just like the culmination of all the cool things. And also getting to watch kids get interested in nature and sustainability. And one of the things we talked about was honorable harvest. So this time of year, there's a lot of huckleberries along the trail. So we got to talk about honorable harvest and tying in those indigenous knowledge pieces for students who've never really thought about that before. Yeah, I think that pretty much covers it. Oh, I guess the only other thing I would say is I took a GIS class while I was here. And I also took the second class, the spatial analysis class. Highly recommend that and any sort of data science tie-ins, just because it's really valuable, one, to know how information is processed, whether you're gonna do things with it or not, because then if you're the one collecting data, you understand like kind of how to format it so that it's better for the people who are trying to do things with the data. And then also having that GIS experience played into my jobs as well made me a good candidate for the stream crew internship, because we use GIS to kind of map out locations of invasive species and stuff. So highly recommend data.
Awesome.
Second the,
Yes.
we take GIS.
Do it.
All right, and now we've got plenty of time for some discussion, some questions. And as you can tell, I mean, our panel has some really fresh perspectives on what it's like to have just been in your seats and thinking about how your path is unfolding, especially as it relates to sustainability, and in some cases still, well, as we all are, making up the journey as you go along, but, hopefully could speak to some of the thoughts that you're having as you look ahead and say, what is my transition from a current student to alumni slash, new professional out in the field of sustainability look like? So obviously these are folks who are well situated to answer some of those questions and give you some insights to that.
Yeah, so the work that I was doing with fisheries was through an AmeriCorps program, Resource Assistance for Rural Environments, which is the same one that Allegra did. And I was placed with a nonprofit group, NeighborWorks Umpqua, that was interested in trying to answer the question, why is it so hard to get local fish when you're on the South Coast? Because if you go to a restaurant on the South Coast of Oregon and you're sitting in a restaurant looking at the Pacific Ocean, the fish on your plate most likely is farmed in the Atlantic. But you can watch the fishing. So the question was, what is going on and where do we make some impact? So my job was to run around the South Coast from Reedsport down to Brookings and talk to fishermen and say what's going on here. And my project was basically to do a big needs assessment of where are the gaps and where are the holes and why is it so hard to get local fish on the South Coast. And by the end of it, sort of handed that over and said, here you go, here, if you want to fix, if you want to work on this food system, this is where you need to do next.
And then can I ask, when you say you're talking to fishermen, are you literally talking like independent fishermen or like small like family like fisheries, or who are you talking to?
I was talking to a lot of the small boat fleet on the South Coast. The trawlers, you have to go to like the association meetings, and I would share information with them. But mostly it was like I hosted a whole listening session series. I called them dockside discussions. I learned the hard way that if you put flyers on pilings at on the docks, then the tide rises and falls, and your flyers at the wrong height most of the time. But I did dockside discussions, and I just I bribed them with donuts and encouraged folks to come in and talk to me about what was going on with the food system. And I had like 30 fishermen in Charleston, which is really a sizable crowd. They were very good donuts.
They make some very good donuts in that area.
And more broadly speaking, like a lot of the time in AmeriCorps land, but also in like sustainability work, like talking to different groups of people and being able to get out and feel comfortable approaching different types of people is a crucial part of coming up with solutions to problems that are around sustainability.
Actually, I wanted to ask, can you expand a little bit on that? Like,
I will after we get a couple other questions. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, okay, I'll take a stab at the first question, and then I'll turn it over to the panel for the second one. But the short answer is globalization. So the consolidation of the processing industry closed a lot of fish processing plants on the South Coast and consolidated them. So fishermen were having to take the price that was given rather than being able to go to multiple processing facilities on the South Coast. And also, a lot of the constraints that the small boat fleet was feeling were regulations that were written for the large boat fleet, and so they were both an extra challenge. But recommendations for first years: take classes that sound interesting.
Yeah, if you don't know what you're going into, well, my tactic, because I had no idea what I wanted to do when I came to Willamette, so I was like, all right, I'm going to literally knock out all of my general requirements by trying every single class that covers the gamut of what is offered here. So if you look at my first 2 years, it's like, why is she in a physics class but also taking an art painting class and like learning about people, but then also trying to get a calculus class done. So if you have no idea what you want to do, literally, if you can, try as many things as possible, because then you'll figure out what you, worst case scenario, you'll figure out what you don't like.
Very good point. When you figure out something you don't like, you can start to like cross off the list. I'll give a slightly different perspective. I knew when I went into college exactly what I wanted to do in terms of majors, so I got a lot of that stuff out of the way, and then my gen eds were at the end. But what I realized at that point is that what I thought I wanted to do by the time I reached towards the end, it's not that I didn't want to do it anymore, but it's that I had all of these other things that I wish I would have done more of at that time. So even if you think you have a really good concrete idea of where you want to go, or if you're still just figuring it out, really try to branch out and do as much as possible, even if you don't think it's necessarily something that you see yourself being in. Just being there and be able to meet a couple of people, like people here, people at different conferences or different events, is a really huge thing. Everybody gets that same advice. It's like even when you're a first or a second or even a third year, go to whatever things are available, meet as many professionals as you can, whether that's networking events or anything like that. But I don't think that gets stated enough, because I didn't take that advice when I was a first and second year. I was like, those conferences aren't for me. That's for like a third or fourth year looking for a job. But because of that, I missed out on 2 years that I could have spent finding connections, figuring out what people do, learning about different jobs that I wouldn't have even heard of or known of. So I really recommend just branching out, trying things even outside of the classroom too.
Yeah, I think that this is kind of related to a number of things that people have said at this point. Listen to yourself when you realize you don't like something. Like, I think that that's a huge part of things. Like, I came in and I kind of thought I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to do international relations, and I quickly realized I did not want to do international relations. And I was like, wow, this was like the plan. And, but then I was like, the only part I actually really like about this is the economics. And so then I just declared economics, and I went with what I actually enjoyed about it. And then that led me to be like, oh, the like part of economics I really like is environmental economics, and it just kind of all led one thing to another. I want to do policy stuff, and I went to an event my first year, and that was another lesson in like what I don't want to do, because I went to this panel similar to this one that the economics department had held, and the majority of the panelists, like there was somebody who worked for like Merrill Lynch, and then there was somebody who worked for like a law firm and basically audited, and like there were just jobs that I was like, I don't want to do that like at all. But then the last person to speak was doing policy work, and he's like, I make a lot less money than these other folks, but I really love my job. And that definitely made an impact. And he was talking about how he had done AmeriCorps actually too, which all came full circle. Yeah, but he did teach for America. That's what he had done. But it was one of those moments where it's like, okay, so there's a very niche part of this that I like. So then I'm going to also go into like the policy side of things to be able to do the work that I want to do. And yeah, everything just kind of leads when you follow your instincts, I feel like, about like what feels like a good fit for you. But you gotta try things and you gotta listen to your gut.
Yeah. As a first year, I came in with a strange goal of just wanting to ace an organic chemistry class. Didn't have a major decided, and the other goal I had was to just do well in the courses that I was doing. I think I wanted to do some sort of policy work or something. I was kind of thinking that, but I wasn't sure. And so I think my advice to a first year student is echoing, like, listen to no's, just do hard work. Choose courses you like and then do them well. Because when you do those well, you'll be able to take it with you to other places. The other thing I've learned from my career when I was working with universities and local governments through the consultancy, my job was really to help faculty take their homework assignments for students and point them towards community needs through relationship. So like, how do we get students to like basically like use their homework to do good in real life, in real time. So that way your homework assignment just isn't turned in to the teacher, or it's not the teacher, but you know, a teacher. And I would challenge any of you to do that with your homework assignments as well. And maybe for fake, maybe like just a hypothetical or just to like try it. Not with an actual organization or with somebody else, but like think about your homework assignments that way as a first year, because that'll help you explore like, is this actually something I want to do or not? And then you can also take it a step further. You can go and seek out organizations or seek out people that you want to offer your homework assignments to, and see if you're willing to like jump through that hoop or those extra steps to do good work for good things. Because I think that really taught me in my undergrad. I did that with the Willamette Academy. I did that with a couple other organizations, and it really helped me improve my quality of work as well as like learn what I like doing, what I didn't like doing. And the last thing I would say is for first year is get out of the community. Like besides your homework classes, like use your student groups or use your extracurricular time to like get out of Willamette and volunteer with organizations outside of Willamette in different fields to see if you like them. So kind of the same thing, like see if you like it, but like also like that's how you get to know how to apply the stuff you're learning. And that's how you get to know like what's going on outside of this bubble that we're all, I'm sure they still call it the Willamette bubble, right? And it works the other way around. I've worked with a lot of people who lived in Salem and they don't know we're here. Because the way the buildings are built around the streets, it blocks the view of us walking on the millstream, so they don't see us. It's crazy that the bubble is like a solid bubble. Like you think it's translucent, you can look through it, it's like solid bubble, people don't see you. Anyway.
Kind of to build on what Marshall was talking about, both in terms of like with your classes, because as a first year you might feel like there's not a lot in terms of what you can put on a resume. That was kind of part of the question. And if you're thinking about classes, either if you do take that step to actually take them to organizations, or even if you just think about your classes where you have like project-based classes, where you have a final product that is a really cool, whether it's like a research paper or something like that, recognizing how you can utilize that in a resume as a representation of work that you've done when you don't have a lot of work experience. And then also the volunteering, especially like outside of Willamette. And even if it's really random volunteer things, like you never know how it's gonna help you. So my volunteering, I did volunteering with kids doing like an improv club, and I helped like a 5th grade play, do their play. And those seem totally random and not related to anything, but because I had this consistent history of working with kids, that's how I got like my Northwest Youth Corps job, and that helped me learn a bunch of sustainability stuff. So you just never know what's gonna help you in the future.
And other thing is, since we have, I think you help with career too, you mentioned, I waited until my junior year, I think, to talk to the career service office. I would start now as a first year student and be like, here's what I have for a resume. If I was just to turn this in, would it work or not? Like, what feedback do you have for me? And like, start shopping your resume now, because one of the first things that the career services office at Willamette told me to do, that was like one of the best advice I've ever received for job pursuits, is that you want to have a resume that has everything you've ever done on it. That's not the resume you turn into jobs, but that's the resume where you keep track of everything. And that turns into the thing that you're going to use for years and years and years and years and years and years. And if I had started that a few years early, I would have probably documented things better and been better prepared to apply to other jobs. So, pitch for the career service office.
Yeah, I literally talked to Jeff, and he told me make a base resume that has everything, and then copy paste the things that are relevant. Saved my life. Made like resumes so much easier because I always have it all there. And then I just pick the relevant things for the job. So magic.
And it's just coming back to hit me again that I need that, because if you want to pursue a PhD, they ask for your CV, which is a full list of everything. Not just a resume that's 2 pages, a full list of everything. So, that's a good question. Thanks for asking. Other, yeah, go
On
ahead.
the front of like the career preparedness stuff, and there's also like the applied learning. I'm definitely gonna like say the public health department is really great, and public health stuff is so tied to sustainability. It was when I was trying to get my sustainability minor that I was like, oh, I think I'm gonna add public health as a major, because all of this is what I like about there was this whole interconnection. Anyway, Professor Basu has done an amazing job with this specifically. He was one of my favorite professors here as well, and he, like, in Intro to Public Health, he will have you make a LinkedIn, like, and like that's, and you get credits for it, but also, like, not that many people, like, when you're in college, especially in an intro class, are probably thinking about that kind of stuff. So I really appreciated that he did that. And also the thesis or capstone for public health is you have to be, like, interning somewhere and do, like, work that is applied to, and it can be, like, anywhere. Like, the people were working at all sorts of different places. Like, I was in the legislature, but the very Hope County Food Bank was actually one that somebody did. I can't remember who it was. But she did her project on, like, culturally significant food and stuff there, and so that name you'll hear it a lot in sustainability work in Salem. There's somebody who did it with, like, the Department of Transportation here. Yeah, there's all sorts of stuff in sustainability, and absolutely get, like, experience as much as you can, because that will give you a lot of information about both the work and yourself.
I think we might have time for one more question.
Every university kind of does their own thing with the city, but from what I remember, I think this is currently changing because we're trying to find a local partner, but Willamette Dining Hall Gallery utilizes Marion County's composting, like, industrial composting center, and then they send it out to, I think the composting center just works with land regenerative, and it's not for local farmers, but that's one that I know that we utilize the industrial composter with Marion County. Where it goes from there, I think you'd actually have to look at what Marion County does with that.
Of course. That was a quick one. We have time for one more.
We can make time for one more.
Good question. I think, how many of us studied abroad? From the other two, any of those? I know that the COVID pandemic probably impacted plans for that for some people, and so I just want to get a quick poll. Anyway, yeah, I went to Spain. It was mainly to learn Spanish, but I learned that there's just outside of the United States, outside of Oregon, things are done very differently, and it's okay, and it's good, and we should learn lessons from those places. And so it helped really pique my mind and, like, here are my blind spots where I'm thinking this is the way things are, when really they don't need to be that way. Yeah. Also, when you're forced to learn a language, it's a big deal. Like, it really opens your eyes again to how current systems are oppressive or impacting you, or not impacting you because you're maybe part of the dominant culture. So when you come back home, you're like, oh, none of our signs have multiple languages on it. But in Spain, like, almost all of the signs have multiple languages on them because everyone's speaking multiple languages. What else? Food's better. Food's so much better. It wasn't. The quality of the individual ingredients was better, but the recipes were, like, man, kind of bland compared to some other places, I guess. That's.
Are you talking particular to Spain food?
Yeah. When my host mom put garlic on food, she said it was spicy. But no, but I'm just saying, like, you learn that things are totally different, and that you have no understanding of what really is actually happening until you go there. Were you thinking of doing the humanitarian international relations work?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, there's some really amazing Willamette grads who are, like, in charge of USAID in Africa, We actually had a panel recorded, I think it's up on YouTube, right?
It is, it's actually,
I-
it's hanging on the LinkedIn group site.
Yeah, so it's, I've watched that recording of how you, it's like thinking about other countries and how you do it, like it's a huge, huge world to learn about. And going abroad is one part of it, but like not necessary. You can learn a ton about other countries by listening to amazing people who do the work there.
I do have one pro tip about studying abroad. If you're going to the southern hemisphere, do it in spring term. Otherwise, you'll be a year and a half of winter.
So this is our Sustainability Network LinkedIn site, and you can see a lot of posts from folks that are actually here on this panel.
Thanks, Kendra.
Hey!
Thanks for all the work. There's job opportunities. I hear this guy in career development is super helpful. And can we do, I don't know why it's not going a little further down, but we do have.
There's a show more.
I just have to press that button. Just read words.
What about it? Can you scroll to the top?
I think there's, so if I could scroll down, if we figure that out, like some of the recordings of our past online programming is on this site. So just, you can trust that it's there instead of me showing it to you right now. And the QR code is right here. And I'll also put the link along with, I'll double check with our panelists, but I'll include their emails. We have posted that survey that I put out tomorrow, and I'll include the link to the LinkedIn Sustainability Network, because I think that's a great resource. It's kind of the hub. It's where we advertise, one of the places we advertise this program tonight. And so it's a bridge between alums who are out there in sustainability and our current students. And so I'd like that to be more active.
One plug, I'm very happy to have my email shared. One thing that I wish I did more was connect with alumni when I was a student and recent alum. And just so you know, all of us are on this panel because we believe in you and we want to support you, and we are choosing to spend our time with you. So please do not hesitate to reach out, because we would love to help you.
We'll also say it does not have to do anything with sustainability at all. We are human beings. We have gone through the process. So if there is any question about anything,
Yeah, such a cool panel. We've got 3 folks who are about 10 years out, so they can really talk about, like, if I knew then what I know now, how I thought my 10 years was going to unfold versus how it has. And then folks who are like, are you still, like, you're just getting started and you're just there, so very recent.
I will
think that's
say,
really,
study abroad too.
really cool perspective, so feel free to reach out to them again soon. We're all share emails. Change was then. So you'll get an email tomorrow that'll have panelists' emails. It'll also have a link to the LinkedIn group, as well as like very brief questions about your experience with the panel tonight. So that way we can continue to improve our programs. But thank you all for being here tonight. Again, it's so cool to have you in person in the rooms instead of doing this virtually. And panelists, thank you very much. I knew you were going to be awesome, but thank you. Thank you so much.